It's no secret that in recent years, China has been a hotspot for some very creepy, strange, and downright disturbing activities. From droves of military tanks policing the streets to unforeseen outbreaks that threaten the fate of humanity, China is no stranger to bizarre happenings. Today we'll be sharing 10 of the strangest things happening in China right now. But before we begin, don't forget to destroy that like button and smash the notification bell to help spread happiness during this strange and difficult time we are living in. Let's jump into it. Number 10. We all know that China's legal system is a bit lackluster to say the least, but did you know that they have a serious problem surrounding the legality of their pharmaceuticals? Back in 2016, the Chinese government conducted a major audit on the medical industry in the country. During this audit, they focused on researching the claims that were being made by many of the country's up-and-coming medications, as well as clinical trials that had recently concluded. The investigation called at least 1,600 clinical trials into question. They dug up old paperwork, files, ingredients, and timelines that the drug manufacturers followed throughout the creation and approval of these medications. What they found will make your jaw drop. The government found evidence that suggests at least 80% of all Chinese pharmaceutical data was fraudulent. Countless records regarding side effects had been deleted or destroyed, and research data had been over-manipulated in a way that proved certain drugs worked, even though they had no factual evidence that these drugs would treat their intended conditions. Thousands of other files and informational documents were either missing or unfinished. They also discovered that many of the new medications on the market were simply mixed doses of old medications that may not have worked. Rather than going back to the drawing board, pharmaceutical companies combined old ingredients they had left over to create new pills that served no purpose at all. They would then fabricate lab and test results that proved these drugs were effective and then release them to unsuspecting patients and rake in billions of dollars. The government even found evidence that many clinical trial results had been saved and published before any experiments had even been performed. Greed seems like a great motivator for producing these kinds of fake results. You create a fake medicine, sell it to patients with genuine illnesses, and let the money pour in, right? Well, not exactly. Investigators found that one of the major motives behind these fraudulent claims was that employees risked losing their jobs if they didn't meet certain deadlines. These deadlines would require employees to find a treatment or a cure for a certain condition within a very strict timeline. If they would not do so, they would be fired, and that is not something you want to happen in China.
You're fired.
Bad things happen to those who get fired. Seriously, look it up. When you also consider the fact that there are dozens of different pharmaceutical manufacturers in China that are each looking to release new medications, the competition gets tense and manufacturers are always on their toes about releasing new medications before the competition does. Number 9. When China first got word of America's F22 Raptor fighter jet, they decided to build a version of their own that was intended to be far better than the American version. They spent several years developing the technology to build such a machine, and they were finally ready for an initial test flight in 2018. The project had been a secret up until that point, but the craft was seen in daylight for the first time in 2018. The plan for this jet to meet the expectations of an F22 Raptor but also exceeded in terms of power, speed, and defenses. However, this jet fell on its face before it even left the ground. An explosion put an end to the project and the country was forced to simply work with what they had, which was a far weaker jet than the F-22 that Americans had designed. To this day, China has still been unable to match the features of the F-22 Raptor, making them far behind the US in terms of military defense. China is certainly a powerful country when it comes to its military, but in this scenario, a war between the US and China could spell disaster for the Chinese military, leaving them extremely vulnerable to aerial attacks. Scary stuff. Number 8. Some of you may remember several years ago that Winnie the Pooh was banned from Chinese social media. However, most of us probably have no idea why the innocent bear was banned from one of the world's most powerful countries. It could be that the bear was banned because China is known to have a strict no-tolerance policy on fun. Just kidding. Jokes aside, Pooh was banned because Chinese citizens had begun to compare President Xi Jinping to the bear, making him incredibly insecure. The president caught on to the shenanigans of the Chinese citizens and quickly crafted a law that banned Pooh or his likeness from appearing on social media, apps, stickers, or merchandising products. Number 7. Back in 2019, a computer expert came across a very creepy list that had been stored in a private Chinese database. It is rumored that this list was only available to the Chinese government, but this has never been confirmed. The list contained the names, ages, phone numbers, and addresses of over 1.8 million Chinese women. However, in addition to this information, it showed the women's breed-ready status, which seems to indicate whether these women were ready to bear children. It is possible that this list was compiled by the government in an attempt to identify women who are capable of giving healthy birth to a child, since the country's birth rate has been rapidly falling. However, to this day, we still have no idea what this list is or who compiled it. Number 6. Back in 2011, the Chinese military unveiled a new weapon that they have dubbed an Electromagnetic Railgun. This gun is capable of firing projectiles at speeds of 1.6 miles per second, which is absolutely nuts. Some have speculated that the idea behind this weapon is to be able to shoot objects underwater without losing speed, but this hasn't been confirmed. The US government seems to believe that China is continuing to work on these weapons and plans to have a version that can shoot up to 124 miles by the year 2025. Number 5. It has been speculated that we may soon see 2 Dalai Lamas alive at the same time. The Buddhist leader says that this will take place after new Chinese laws have been passed that could allow a second Dalai Lama to be approved before the current one has passed away. The current Dalai Lama has been living in India since he fled from China 60 years ago. In 1995, a child was identified as being the reincarnation of Panchen Lama, the second highest ranking position after the Dalai Lama. The Chinese government then kidnapped this boy and he was never seen again. The leaders of Beijing then replaced him with a boy they believed to be more suitable for the position.
Wait. There it is. You just attained it.
I have.
Yes, just now. You are one. I can see it in your eyes.
Considering that China is known for its persecution of many religions, the fact that they now have theoretical control over all future Dalai Lamas poses serious risks for the religion as a whole and the Chinese people. Number 4. Many of us have likely heard of the Chinese social credit system. This is a system that Chinese citizens must abide by, in which individuals are given scores based on how relevant they are to society, how much they contribute, and generally what type of person they are. This score is curated after individuals recycle items correctly, pay bills on time, show up to work, and do charitable works. The more good you do, the higher the score. This opens you up to better opportunities and jobs. The system has made it incredibly difficult for less fortunate individuals to take a single step in life and prevents them from getting basic jobs or getting loans for their homes or vehicles. This program is essentially a credit report on steroids and is ruining the lives of millions of Chinese citizens every day. Considering that everyone is under constant surveillance of facial recognition technology that tracks their every move and adjusts their scores accordingly. Number 3. Back in 2018, American diplomats who were stationed in China began to hear strange noises coming from seemingly nowhere. They soon began to fall ill and started having awful headaches and were unable to sleep. As their sickness grew, the US government withdrew the individuals from the region and brought them back home. They all almost immediately got better, but several were found to have permanent brain damage. As it would turn out, someone had been using sonic attacks against the Americans to drive them out of China. We aren't pointing fingers, but it seems rather obvious who is behind these attacks. Number 2. Back in 2013, China took the brunt of a virus that spread around known as H7N9 bird flu. This virus has a 40% fatality rate and is known to have claimed the lives of many people. China and the US had an agreement to work together on a cure, but China eventually fell silent on the issue and refused to provide samples and research info to the United States. No one knows why, but 2 more outbreaks took place in 2016 and 2017, and the US was widely unprepared for the virus to cross across its borders. If this information is not shared with the proper authorities, an outbreak could occur at any given moment, and without proper treatment, it could wipe out up to 40% of the world's entire population. Worse than any virus we have ever seen. Number 1. Many years ago, China was found to have been removing organs from prisoners who were still alive and well, and giving the organs to higher members of society who needed transplants. This process was heavily investigated and forcibly stopped, or so it seemed. As recent as 2019, a doctor came forward and confessed that he was forced to remove the kidneys from a prisoner who was still alive to give them to another patient. Most countries around the world have patients who are forced to wait years for organ transplants. In China, patients typically only have to wait a few weeks for a transplant, and we may now know why.